All right, here we are. We're back again doing this podcast.
Doing this podcast and doing it on October 22nd, which is a Tuesday, and it's 2024. Welcome aboard, everybody. You listen to the Crushing Iron podcast, and we are 8:07 today.
Tuesday in October. It doesn't get much better than that.
Does not, and you're talking to two happy football guys right now. Give us a week, and we'll come back, check back with you. But yeah, college football season treating us both pretty solid this year. Go Badgers this weekend if you're a Penn State fan. Hope you guys lose. And we're on a bye week, so I can say that. But yeah, beautiful. Listen, October, one of the best months of the year. Easy, not even a question. You got playoff baseball, you got college football, you got the NFL, you got hockey. All you're missing is the NBA, but nobody cares about the NBA. So, but yeah, you got KONA this weekend, which will be our topic for later this week. We'll do a little bit of a KONA breakdown. It's been a weird year with like the not just the split championships, but like the distance between the championships, with KONA being so late this year. I think the latest it's ever been. Right here at the end of October, you're pushing the envelope to November, which could mean the fastest times you're ever going to see. I think a little bit lower winds, a little bit less heat and humidity could make for just an insanely fast day. So on Thursday, we'll do a little bit of a preview of the men's field. You know, every year they say it's the most stacked field in the history of the sport. And then like 3 days before the race, like half the field drops out from, stomach bugs or niggles or whatever it is. So Thursday will be 48 hours out, so we can safely kind of make our picks. But it does look to be a pretty loaded field this year. I mean, I think I think it could be anybody. It could be Chuck Knuth for all we know. And so it's going to be.
I was going to call it, man. I'm calling it Chuck Knuth. I'm calling it Chuck Knuth PR at KONA.
You're calling the Knuth
PR
coming in hot. Yeah, I'm telling you, obviously, KONA is KONA, and it's that for, it's got the mystique for good reason. But if the wind is low and the heat isn't as crazy, it's an insanely fast. I mean, especially the bike course. I mean, it's perfect roads, barely any turns. Yes, it's rolling with some hills, but it's got long descents. And I mean, if we're just being honest, it's one gigantic draft train from the gun. I mean, it is one gigantic draft train on the bike. Now the run, different story, is super hot, but yeah, it is a total draft fest. And it's mostly type A pointy end dudes, so it's going to be even worse.
It might be easier than the T100 over the weekend.
I
heard that was
this is kind of where I'm at in the T100.
Yeah.
I forgot that they even had the race.
I know, but it was something. I heard it was a tough race.
What's that?
Heard it was tough.
Oh, dude, I think they did it on or at least around where they used to do the 70.3 World Championship when it went to Henderson, Nevada. I mean, which is just a brutal course. I had an athlete do the age group race, and he said it was just. He said swim was a swim, bike was challenging, but he said there wasn't a flat section on the run, which I think is great. Like, I think they should make these courses like really, really, really challenging. I don't think the T100 is going to be around in 2 years, but I like it when they make hard courses. I don't like courses where it's like 19 flat loops in like a parking lot. I don't think that's spectator or viewing friendly, but they're trying. I don't really know what they're trying to do. I think they've changed their business model like 17 times in the last 2 years, but they're paying some people well. So I don't blame the pros for taking on that series and taking the paychecks while they can, because they're probably not going to be around in the next 2 years. I don't think. It's just I don't know what they're doing. Triathlon just isn't. I mean, we love the sport. We live it. We breathe it. We work it. It's just not viewing friendly. It's just not. It's like there's only so much you can say about, and you'll see it on the KONA broadcast right on Saturday. I think they've done a better job recently of rotating in different commentators, because to me that's the only way to win that battle. It was such a long we're looking at like a 7.5 hour day for the men. That's just a long ass time. And even a 4 hour bike ride, that's a long time to stare at the side profile of Sam Laidlow and talk about his bike position, right? Or his saddle height, or how much he's moving, or where his bottles are. Like, that's just not entertaining, right? It's like kind of like watching white noise. But what I think that they're trying to do better at, and I think T100 does this and I've heard that Ironman's doing this for this weekend, is they're weaving in like different commentators every hour, which I think is fantastic, and bring in some color commentary. Like, I mean, I can't stand listening to Michael Lovato. Matt Lieto is also terrible. DD Grease. I mean, they have the worst commentating team on the planet, and Rennie's actually pretty solid. But outside of that, it's just vanilla and boring. You know, I think Jan Frodeno's a great commentator. Ali Brownlee, Sebastian Kienle, they've all been like really, really good. But bring in some pros that aren't racing. I think Joe Skipper's going to come on, which he's probably going to say something disastrous, which would be fantastic. But yeah, bring in someone different to like talk to the people that are watching and, you know, kind of go through from a pro standpoint, like what they're thinking about. So I think that's the only way to make it kind of lively. But regardless, it should be good, fast day. And I think there'll be plenty of fireworks to be seen.
Yeah, I mean, it is a tough gig. It's like kind of being a commentator on a baseball game. You got to fill so much space. You know, the action itself is not taking care of it. It's almost like I'm watching that Mr. McMahon on Netflix about Vince McMahon, and maybe they need somebody like him to spice things up with some pre-race, you know, storylines. He cooks up like a WWE shit.
Seriously, I mean, just something.
Like the triathletes are so nice, though. It's hard to kind of like occasionally you get somebody that's being a little snarky, but then everybody's like, "Ooh, that's not good." It's like almost like golf etiquette in the triathlon.
I know, dude.
You can't be a dick
honestly,
at all.
I mean, people think this is probably terrible, but what the sport needs is like a little bit of that NASCAR flair. Because I mean, if I'm being honest, you couldn't pay me to watch NASCAR. I mean, it's like going to sit on the side of the interstate and pulling up a lounge chair with a beer and like watching the cars drive by fast. I mean, that's what NASCAR is. But you occasionally, you know, have some they swap paint a little bit and they get out and you know they try to, you know, bitch slap each other a few times with their fists open, in a little pretend fight. Again, going back to Vince McMahon. And it kind of gets you like, oh, like some rivalry. I'd love to see, you know, I mean, picture this, you know, Ironman, you tune it on, they got KONA, you know, they're getting into the post race interviews. Everybody's got their headphones in, you know, and you got Rudy Von Berg, you know, a couple slots down from Sam Laidlow, and they get in a little bit of a tiff, and Sam Laidlow pulls out one of his tire tubes and bitch slaps him across the face, and people got to like separate him. And you got Christian Blumenfeld, you know, walking by, and he like, you know, shoulder bumps Lionel Sanders, and he turns around and, you know, and squirts him in the face with his water bottle with both hands. And then you got, you know, Magnus Ditlev, who's walking over, and, you know, when he gets accidentally tripped and starts going at it with, you know, Gustav Eden, he takes out like, you know, rips open 17 Martin gels and dumps them all over his face. Like, that's what we need. That is the kind of entertainment that we need. And they all rinse off and hop in, and then you get to like see them talk shit and race against each other with a little bit of, you know, when you pass, instead of saying like, hey, you know, good job, you know, hang in there, you know, they get, you know, throw out the old peace sign. See ya, you know, peace out, dude. Or a little bit of a slap on the ass and a middle finger. I'm telling you, you know, I know it doesn't sound, you know, polite and kosher, but every sport has that. And that's why every sport thrives. And if you want more people to watch the sport, which the more people that watch the sport, the more people get into the sport, at some point we got to start being, you know, a little bit less dainty when it comes to, you know, how everyone presents themselves. And you got to be, you know, straight laced, and got the polos and our flat bills. And it's like, we need a villain. But the problem is all the villains usually get popped for roids, so they are EPO and they're out of the sport for like 2 years. So we need a villain, you know, legit. We need a couple villains, I think, to spice the sport up a little bit and to make it interesting.
Yeah, it's hard to be a villain because it's just such a hard sport to, you know, live up to. I mean, you can't just like manpower somebody over. You just got to really go for it.
Right.
But you know, it's I was thinking, what's that half marathon? There's a half marathon in Tennessee where the spectators make it the event, and there's like these you know, like country mountain men. You run through these weird kind of outposts in the middle of nowhere out in the hills of Tennessee, and there's guys out there with banjos playing deliverance music and shit, and then they'll kind of walk up to you and say, "What are you running from, boy?" They dress up in their like shit. Like that would be cool on the island. Maybe there's a point on the run course where you're like the Islanders are out there, all with their lays on and their old, outfits and shit. And they're like doing voodoo ceremonies. You never know what's going to hit you if you go through this little checkpoint, just weird shit like that might be fun. What you running from, boy?
That's hilarious. Yeah.
I forgot the name of that. It's a great
tune in and make sure that, they're, make sure they're listening, and we will, we'll have that, knocked out.
Yeah. Maybe blow through seashells and, that sound they make. It just,
Or, maybe spice it up with like, you aren't allowed to start the race with any nutrition. You can start the race with 0 nutrition, and then there's an aid station every 2 miles, and you can grab a bottle, but you have no idea what's in it. It could be water, could be scratch, could be pickle juice, could be orange juice, could be, like a kale smoothie, could be chicken broth, could be Coke. Just make it random. You're only allowed to stop 6 times. After the 6 times, you're out. So you can if you get lucky, you're lucky. But I think shit like that's fun. But because triathlon's so like buttoned up about so many things, and and let's be honest, triathletes are very buttoned up and very serious about pretty much all things. So, we got to have a little bit of fun in the sport. So hopefully we're bringing you a little bit of fun today. Hope you with some good visuals and some good topics. It's your first time tuning in today. Welcome. We appreciate you giving us your time. We know you have quite a lot of options in the triathlon podcast universe and just podcasts in general. Time is a revows. Appreciate you in the day. We cover it all. We do swim, bike, and run specific podcasts. We do race recaps and also a lot of race previews. But for the most part, Mike and I, as coaches, athletes, best friends, we just sit back, relax, have an open, honest discussion about what we're going through in life, not just as human beings, but also as coaches and athletes ourselves. Mike and I also talk frequently about what our own athletes are going through. He and I work with a wide range of athletes all across the globe, from beginner level athletes in the very first 5K or sprint triathlon, all the way up through elite level amateurs trying to get back to world championships, and everyone in between from all over the globe. We use the feedback loop we have with them and Training Peaks, emails, text message, and the like to drive the discussion of the day. We also like to utilize our Facebook group. We did that last week. You can search that on Facebook, Crushing Iron Group. Answer one simple question. We'll let you right in. Awesome community, fantastic resource, and a solid community in a sport that is oftentimes way overcomplicated and way too confusing. It is a safe, actionable space to get great information from awesome people that will hopefully allow you to avoid some of the pitfalls we've all made along the way. And we go in there every once in a while, do a bit of a Q&A, take the pulse of the community, answer as many questions as we can, and that is it. We have 0 sponsors, we do 0 ads, but we do have an agenda, and that's to do our best to keep you happy and healthy in your endurance sports journey.
And that was dedicated to Brad Chmielewski over in Minnesota. It's sponsored today by the Corn Maze.
It's sponsored today by the Corn Maze. I love it. Sponsoring our local athletes and their local businesses for the last 8 years. We had a couple topics that we were digging out of our cargo shorts before we went live today. And one of the, I will have to say, I don't always find Facebook posts funny. Like, frankly, rarely ever do I find them funny. But I did get a huge kick out of the post that John Hansen made yesterday in the Facebook group, asking about what's your essentials for your pain cave, and he said, "Robbie, what are yours? No fans allowed, 95 degree heat, 95 degree at its coldest, single hanging incandescent bulb to not see any data." I got a kick out of that, John Hansen. Well, I didn't laugh out loud, but I gave you like a double ha-ha, but I enjoyed that. But it got me thinking, as we're kind of like diving into it's not winter yet. I mean, hell, it was 85 here yesterday, but we're getting there. And, people are out, you got to winterize your sprinkler system and irrigation system. You got to winterize your pools. You got to winterize your boats. And we could talk a little bit about how to winterize your training, set yourself up for success going into the off season. We always get tons of questions this time of year about, what the focus needs to be, and availability, and what people don't want. People are always very not opinionated, but very I guess maybe opinionated or stern in what they are for sure they do not want to do over the winter. And I think one of the biggest areas of improvement as we kind of talk through like ways to winterize your training, set yourself up for success and be ready to come out of the winter in a really great spot. There's a lot of things you can do, a lot of areas to focus on. We do like the run program. You got things like the swim school. You got, as we talked about, I think like 2 weeks ago, like focusing on, identifying your weaknesses, working on, strength, mobility, flexibility. Maybe you need to work in the kitchen. Maybe you need to work on lowering your stress. Maybe you need to work on addressing boundaries. But winterizing your training to me starts, the first place you have to start is making sure that you find something, one, attainable, and two, exciting, that keeps you moving through the winter. Because, winter is the time of year where, late fall, winter, depending on, when your season really kind of cranks back up next year, is most people kind of take this time of year, let's say you're doing a late season race, you got in October, November, December. A lot of people take a lot of time off, right? And again, there's nothing wrong with time off. I think choice days are great. I think easy days, less structure, even just like weaving in slight, choose your own day and just making it a little bit lighter. But what happens is people take like this enormous period of time off, and then they take extended periods over November, December, because you got the holidays, you got family stuff, you got work parties, no race in the future. And then you try to restart in what I think is one of the hardest times of year to train. It's dark outside. You don't want to go to the pool because it's too cold. You can't ride outside. You're stuck riding on your trainer, and then you might want to go on the treadmill. It's hard to get started and to start from scratch going into a hard period of time where it's already hard, right? From a decision-making standpoint and motivation, people's motivation usually gets lax. You don't see seasonal depression in, late spring and summer. You see it in the fall and winter for good reason. So I think that the biggest thing in terms of looking like winterize your training to set you up for success is to find a goal, whether big or small, that keeps you motivated and focused throughout the winter. Now, it could be something as small as a 5K, could be a half marathon. We all know where I stand on open marathons. But finding something that keeps you, again, it doesn't have to be a race. It could be, I'd like to, work on my feeling, and this is how I'm going to gauge that. It could be, I want to raise my FTP. It could be I want to lower my CSS in the pool. Something, that's a measurable, process-oriented goal, I think is more important than any other time of year. It's important to have in the winter, because that's when you start to kind of weave and sow your success for next year. But if you don't have a goal and you're kind of flying by your pants and you're taking time off, and then you're going to come back and you're going to not have even tread water, you're going to be drowning in being sedentary and detraining, and then you're going to want to get motivated from a period of inactivity, which is already hard enough, right? And then it's going to be on the time of year where, waking up and it being 15 degrees outside, and you got to go warm up the car, and then you got to drive to the pool, and you get on the pool deck, bikes inside. It feels a lot less glamorous over the winter. So it's a lot less things. So anything you can do to help kind of propel you and motivate you, I think to get you through January, February is crucial in setting yourself up for success for a solid next season.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I talk to my athletes a lot about, the most important thing I think at this time of the year is figuring out something that you can wake up and go do and that you enjoy. And then, sprinkle other things with it. For me, lately, one of my favorite things is kind of doing like a weighted incline treadmill walk. It's just one of those things that just feels good to me. It kind of keeps my baseline. And, I just think it's really difficult to kind of keep intensity over a 12-month, at least for me. I'm just speaking for me and and a lot of people that I've worked with and stuff. And I just think the reality is like you get excited. It's almost like there's a lot of triathletes fall into this cycle of triathlon cycle where they kind of let things go here and there, and then they're not really into it. Then a year comes around, and then it's like, okay, I'm going to do some races or whatever. And then you look up and you didn't do what you said you were going to do last off season. So you're just kind of like, well, I can still do it. I know I can do it. And then you kind of go through the season, and then whether it's your, quote unquote, your strength training isn't where you need it to be, or you want to blame it on that. But you can still keep doing it. And, speaking from somebody with experience about doing these things every year and kind of getting through there and going through the motions, it kind of wears you out. You can keep doing it. And I keep going back to the starting line, but not necessarily with what I would like in my sort of backpack. It's kind of like letting things go through this part. So to me, it's, you called me really good at kind of staying in the ballpark kind of guy. And in the ballpark, I think, is where we need to be really focusing on right now. Is it's so easy to kind of lose completely where you're going and all that kind of thing. And I do think it's very difficult to keep swim, bike, run going 12 months a year. So there's times like this when let's figure out some variety or some variations of what we're doing and supplement and complement and just sort of be doing stuff that's going to help you in the long run, but isn't necessarily the exact same thing. Some people are really great at it. I'm not, but I like to mix things up. And I've been doing these different little, rower rotations and hanging and push-ups and, stuff like that is really just for me, because I can't, like, other than this little hydro bike we have up here, I don't think I've been on my bike since Wisconsin again. It's just like, why does that happen? I don't know. But how are you going to, I feel like I fall behind and then I have to rush up and catch, it's sort of that habit of cramming for tests all the time. At some point, we want to stay up on things and kind of know that we have a base and a baseline set when we turn the calendar. And then, like you train, so you can train like you need to train, and that might come in a lot of different packages.
Yeah, I love that, because I think, and listen, I think 4 weeks is a good flex, like maybe called a grace period, post your big race of the year, no matter the distance. Because again, like we talk about this a lot, like, yes, Ironman is long. We all established it's much, much easier than a marathon, but it's long, it's hard. Same thing with the marathon, half Ironman. Again, a lot of it isn't just the physical toll of the training, it's the mental and emotional toll, right? The expectations, the focus. Like, to me, that's the hardest part, right? I don't hear athletes post big race of the year, whether it's Boston Marathon, whether it's a marathon, a 5K, a trail race. I don't hear people say post, we're talking like a week out of their big race, like week after. I never hear anyone say, because I always give mostly like, usually 2 weeks of just like choice, day off, do whatever you want, get away from me, I'll get away from you, do your thing, just don't be stupid, and we'll reconvene. And when it's time to, quote unquote, right after 2 weeks, it's time to come back, I don't think I've ever had anyone say, hey, I'm still so fatigued, like I'm still so sore, I can't move. It never happens. They say, I still don't think I'm really ready for structure yet. I think I need a little bit more flex time to just kind of do what I want. I need to play catch up on other things in my life that I let go during this intense period of focus and commitment. That's what you hear. And so again, it's not physical, it's the emotional, mental toll. And you just can't, and this is for coaches, right? You can't expect your athletes to maintain that level of focus and commitment year round. Just like you can only burn your biscuits in 1 or 2 races and put together like 2 really focused, perfect, not perfect, but as close to perfect as you can training blocks from physical standpoint, you can't. I think we forget that, right? It's like you can't produce as close to a perfect training block as possible without the emotional and mental buy-in and commitment and motivation and resilience required to get your butt out the door to do the rides, do the runs, and to get your butt to the pool, do the swims, and then to execute it. and then to recover and to fuel right and to eat right and make sure your gear is good, right? And keep up with everything else you got. Like, that's a lot. And, and I think it's really just important to note that it is really, really easy for your body to get into like a detraining mode. Like, so 2 weeks post race, I always kind of see athletes like way higher heart rate, slower pace, just after 2 weeks of no training for what they're, but then it comes back after a week or two. And it's just as easy it is to go into detraining and start to lose fitness. It's just as easy to maintain a level of fitness at minimal effort. And I think that's something that I think a lot of athletes struggle with this time of year is, I don't want structure, but I also don't want to be sedentary, right? I don't want to keep trying to peak, but I also don't want to lose fitness, and there's a lot of ways to go about doing that. And like you said, I have very few athletes that can do swim, bike, run 12 months out of the year. And if they can, it's because they've been doing the sport for just like 2 or 3 years. After that, they're like, I think I need a little bit of a break. I think I just want to run and bike for a little bit. And don't even give me a swim, Or I've got some, they're like, hey, I really just can't even stand the sight of my bike right now. And if you make me get on it, I'm going to get on it with a chainsaw and I'm going to cut it into 7 pieces and make it into, a decoration. Like everyone, or I don't want to go to the pool. I don't want to run, whatever it is. Like, people go through these phases. And so as a coach, like, you can if you want to. But if there's a period of like, hey, like, you have to let the athletes tell you what they're willing to do and not force them. And that's just super important, right? Is to listen, say, hey, if you're not ready, you're not ready. Like, so what's the point in me making you feel worse about what you're trying to get back to by giving you structure when you're not ready for structure and seeing you get reds? So stop and think, well, just drop in some choice days. Do it really well until we'll reconvene next week. Are you ready? No. All right, let's just keep doing choice. Like, you can't fight it. And then you kind of usually see it, like, and this, like, as a coach, you give a week of choice and there's nothing done for a week. And then the next week there's like 2 to 3 runs, maybe, and like a spin or a walk the dog. And then the next week there's like 2 swims, 2 bikes, a run or 2. And you're like, they're coming back. They're feeling it again. But it was their choice, right? They want to enter the room of back to structure. And even when you weave the structure in, it's so great to have a really low level of training responsibility. And, going back to what you said about, doing different things during this time of year, like, again, it's so easy. Maybe easy isn't the right word, but it is much simpler, I think, to, again, maintain a level of ballpark fitness. And maybe you're not even in the ballpark yet. Maybe you're at least at the gate, right? You're at the gate. Hell, maybe you're at the concession stand. I don't know. Than it is to totally go to the parking lot, get in your car and drive away from the ballpark. Like, you don't need 10 hours. I mean, we're talking like 4 to 5, maybe, just to maintain. And there's a bunch of ways you can do that, I think, to make you feel more excited. And again, maybe excited isn't the right word either, but more unfocused, which I think, people hear that from a coach or an athlete and they're like, well, why would I want to be unfocused? But it goes back to what we're talking about, is there's only a certain length of time that you can be focused. And so, supporting athletes and encouraging them to be flexible. Like, I've been putting in on Saturdays for the past few weeks for a lot of athletes. I've just put on their long ride or run of choice. Do whatever you want. I don't care. Ride for 30 minutes, run for an hour and a half. I don't care. It's the weekend. Do what you want. Because I found most athletes need more structure during the week because their week is already structured, because they live off of structure during the week. Whether you work Monday through Friday, wherever your hours are, you're still work off of structure. You got responsibilities. Your kids got to go places. You wake up at the same time. So structure fits into structure well. But on the weekend, where you have more flex, you see a lot of rebellion, I found, on the weekend, right? Because the weekends are more flexible. You got college football, you got all these things to do, you got kids' activities, you want to hang out with the family. And so to like insert a level of structure into the weekend is kind of like, fuck that, man. I don't want structure. This is the weekend, baby, and it's October. I don't want to do any of this. It's not even race season. But during the week, structure fits into structure well. And the same for the weekend, flexibility fits into flexibility well. And, as you kind of move through like the, October, November, December months, figure out these ways to kind of, again, like winterize your training as such as for success. Try new things out, right? If you want to, go to the gym more, go to the gym more. And then just, do a couple maintenance swim, bike, and runs, right? Again, it doesn't take a lot to just hang on to a general level of fitness, or even, and here's the most important part, is just slow down the degradation of the fitness that you gained, right? It doesn't take a lot. And plus it'll make you feel good. And that's why it's so hard to watch athletes go full on and then go full stop, right? Because you don't just lose the fitness, but sometimes you'll regress because your mobility suffers, your aerobic capacity suffers. And if that suffers, your health suffers, right? Your sleep suffers. Like I think we would all agree, right? That when you work out, you do aerobic work, you eat right, you sleep better, you recover better, you're in a better mood. You're a better human being. And then you stop doing this, right? So you remove, again, like, structure begets more structure, flexibility begets more flexibility. Well, when you start to let go, like the training and the regimen and the health focus, right, that is training, that's when a lot of things go as well, right? Like eat a little more freely, drink a little more freely. You're not as hydrated enough. You don't do the recovery items. Like, you rarely see someone like totally stop training and they're like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna really prioritize my health right now. I'm gonna sleep more. I'm gonna drink more water. I'm gonna give up alcohol. I'm gonna, do this, like, I'm gonna do more mindfulness. No, they just like, you go all in or you go all out. And so just that small, insignificant, what you might deem as insignificant amount of effort is enough to keep you in the game and engaged. So when the time comes to flip the switch, to be just a little bit more structured, a little bit more motivated, a little bit higher level commitment, it's not foreign, right? It's not uncomfortable. It's not a total stranger. You're like, oh, we know each other. We've been kind of, we've been dating here for a bit. I know I've ghosted your training for a while, but, I've still been here. And then here I am again, and you're drunk dial them on an easy walk with your dog. Like, hey, I'm back. And then 2 weeks later, you're like, you know what? I'm all in. Let's get in a relationship with training and I'm ready to go.
Yeah. Well, you said something there that really hits home with me. It's this, you rarely do you see people like, stop training and then say, hey, I'm going to focus on more sleep, drinking more water, not drinking, alcohol, whatever the case may be, doing these things that I'm talking about that we all think about doing and getting back to baseline over the winter. I think those things are important. I mean, why not? If you're not sleeping, I mean, I talk about this all the time and I don't do it, but I'm going to be like, all right, I'm going to prioritize sleep. What does that mean? It means like you got to almost prepare yourself to go to bed, and really work on getting to be a better sleeper and actually taking it seriously kind of, or, drinking more water, eating healthy. I mean, I see no problem. Like, to me, you talked about degradation of fitness. I think that is like a really great way, if you get your diet dialed in, for example. And, it's just very difficult to be perfect with all that kind of stuff. But I always kind of took an approach. It's sort of always been my approach is if I'm not going to be perfect, I'm going to at least try to eat one really solid meal a day and just keep, that as part of my regimen. Or like what I was saying is maybe I'm not going for rides or a ton of, runs or whatever the case, but I am going to walk on the treadmill with a weighted vest for a while, or do a rower, or jump in the cold water, just stuff that kind of feels good and keeps me, from that degradation of fitness. You were talking about, choice days after big races. And I that's really been interesting to me over, my time as a coach and stuff. And normally I would feel like, oh, I feel kind of bad just, throwing that in there. But really what it does, and you said it exactly right. That first week is usually like nothing, maybe a walk or something. The next time is, maybe there's a pool thing or a short run or something like that. And then the third week kind of comes around. What I find beautiful about that is it's kind of this actions speaks louder than words type of deal, right? Some athletes will be like, I really want to work on my swimming over the winter. And I'm like, all right, well, show me. You've had 3 weeks of choice and I haven't seen you go to the pool. I don't know if you really do want to work on that yet. And it's just sort of, it kind of helps me see where their heads are at or where their body's at and what they want to do. And then we can kind of move on for some structure from that point. And, you know, it doesn't have to go from a complete choice week to a complete structure, you know. Those are the things I'm kind of always looking for, because I think people are at a different place this time of year. And that's why it's so important for me to help people find, I guess, something to look forward to tomorrow. And I always think about that when I'm training right now, is like, you know, like you're talking about weekend rebellion. It's so easy to be like, I haven't done shit in a while. I'm going to go run a 2 hour. I'm going to go do 2 hours. And then you kind of put yourself back behind the 8 ball or something like that. But I think it's really good to, you know, Frank Costanza stops short a little bit here and there at this time of year, because, you know, when you can stop a little ahead of the game, that really sets up tomorrow really well. And it's better than having an epic day and then not doing anything for 3 days. I like I tell athletes all the time, you know, if you're going to go to the gym and maybe do your treadmill or maybe whatever, just, you know, bring your jammers and get in the pool for like 500 yards or something. Just keep that around. You know, I think there's this it's, you know, like we talk about 20-minute runs a lot, right? People will be, well, 20-minute run. No, that's a habit, right? And I think, you know, because you always hear it, swim, oh, it's so hard to get back into the swim. I lost everything, you know. But if you what if you swim 500 to 1,000 a couple times a week? I mean, you'd be still right there, ready to kind of turn it up a lot faster, I think. And I do think that a lot of this stuff, you know, if you got into a regular swimming regimen for, you know, 2 or 3 weeks, you'd be right back. But it's just that process of always kind of starting like in your mind from scratch that I think wears us out a little bit. But if you can kind of keep it around, then maybe that's 20-minute runs 3 or 4 times a week, you know. Don't underestimate those little things, because it's better than sitting on the couch and saying you'll do it tomorrow. Again, that's why I go back to this plunging thing. So it's always an event for me. It's kind of like hard to do. So if I get that going, then it kind of spurs something else, you know, but I don't wear myself out doing those things. You know, it's, that's why I love the treadmill walk, because a lot of times that'll set me up, be like, oh, I feel pretty good now. I'm going to go run, or maybe I'll, you know, do something else. It's just sort of that transition thing that I like to talk about a lot, is sort of like what's going to get you moving a little bit in a comfortable way, wake your body up, and then you can make it a different decision rather than one where you don't want to do anything.
Yeah, I mean, it's about priming the engine, right? You might not think you're ready to go 0 to 60 or even like, you know, go for a Saturday afternoon, you know, cruise. But if you get out there and you do a treadmill hike, or you walk, or even just walking the dog, right? Or hop on the bike with your kid, you're like, oh, you know, activity, you know, makes you want to do more activity. I mean, up to a point, obviously, until you get fatigued. But, you know, and sitting makes you want to sit more, right? It's just, it happens all of us every day of life. But you're sitting for a long period of time, and you need something simple. Like your kid's like, hey, can you get so? You're like, ugh. Got to go all the way upstairs and grab it and come all the way back down. You know, it's like 50 steps here we're talking about. But if you're up and you're moving around and you've been doing stuff around the kitchen, like, hey, I need to, you're like, yeah, I'll get it. I'm already up. I'm already moving. It's what I'm doing. No problem. And so we take that same, you know, psychological, you know, piece to training. Sedentary, a bit more sedentary activity, any activity, right, is going to allow you, and at least motivate you, encourage you to do more activity, and your body will crave it. And here's the thing: is your body doesn't give a shit what kind of activity it is. It doesn't care. You know, and I had this discussion with an athlete the other day talking about focusing more on one thing or another. I was like, you know, you have to weigh the cost and the loss of, you know, fitness progression, and then fitness, obviously, regression. And I said, so tell me this, you know, let's say you don't do anything for 2 or 3 months. Run fitness, decline. Bike fitness, decline. Swim fitness, decline. But let's say you are currently, a 10-minute mile person, and over the next 2 to 3 months, all you do is run. You do a little bit of strength training, maybe even just one bike a week and just one swim a week, or maybe even none of them. But you go from a person who's capable and has the aerobic capacity and fitness to do from a 10-minute mile, you go down to like 8:30, 8:50. Your body's more durable. You put in a lot of mileage. You got fitter. Do you think during that period of, again, getting fitter as a runner, that the compartments that and the specificity required to ride and swim well weren't impacted positively? Wrong. They're both impacted positively. You won't lose as much as you thought you would from doing nothing in all three. Yes, you become a better cyclist, negligible, probably not. Would you be able to maintain some? Probably to the shorter extent. Like, you'd probably be able to maintain high power, and then you probably fatigue over long periods because you don't have the endurance to do it. But you would still be better off. Like, even if you don't have any progression in the two sports, you totally, just decided to toss the curb for 4 to 10, 12 weeks. You might not see any progression there, but you'd see significantly less regression. And then would that slight regression in those two be canceled out by the progression in the one sport that you focused on? Probably, right? Because you got fitter. And then you have confidence in that. And you also weren't as super structured. You weren't doing some bike run 24/7. You allowed yourself the freedom to only think of maybe one sport. And I think we worry way too much about how complementary and or even separate all the three sports are. Like, just swimming, just biking, just running, they compartmentalized. The fitness is only transferable to the sports you're doing in that exact period of time. And, how you can still, again, and I think athletes lose sight of this, especially early on in their kind of hobbyist career, is that they lose sight of the longevity picture. What's going to keep me engaged for the longest period of time? I've got an athlete that I just admire so much that I've been coaching for, God, I don't know how long, 7, 8 years. In the last 2 years, he's done 100K, a 50 miler, the Triple T stage race, triathlon, a 70.3, a full, and a swim event. And he'll just go through these undulating periods of what's exciting to him and what's not. And the dude's super consistent. He rarely ever misses. He's excited. He's engaged. He's in it for the long haul. He's in about, and again, and I think, again, this is a huge piece that I know we touch on a lot, especially this time of year. But, the long game for us is life, right? How fit are we? How aerobically, efficient are we? How strong are we? How fit are we? How disciplined are we? Like, are these all guaranteed markers where you get a free pass to the pearly gates when you're 99? No. But it sure as hell increases the chances of you living a better, healthier life. Regardless of how long you live, it's the quality of life that matters. And so to think that you got to kind of be one and done, and because we see it all the time as coaches, right? You and I have been in the sport for long enough as athletes and coaches to know that, the ultimate success, or the one thing you want for athletes, right, is to be happy and healthy. Right? Not to PR and podium. It's to be happy and healthy. And you and I have both seen, athletes over the years that have come into the sport, got coaching, went all in, obsessive, all about, perfection and training and racing. Then they stop and they just quit. And then you catch up with them on a later date, or you see them, down the road and are cross paths on social media. And, sometimes, are they healthy? Sure. But a lot of times they look rough, right? They went all in on a sport, not all in on health and longevity and what the sport can do for you. And then they crashed and burned and had, and then their off season, turned into, my taking a semester off. It's like his famous last words, right? No parent wants to hear, I think I'm going to take this semester off. You're like, no, you're not. You're never going back to school. And that was me. Take one semester off and then you're done for good. And you're like, oh, I'll take the season off and I'll come back. And then you find every reason and every excuse to not come back. And again, it's not about coming back to the sport. It's not about coming back to coaching, or it's not coming back to triathlon. It's about like coming back to the behaviors and the commitment and the routine and the having a goal and a why that makes you excited and that pushes you to do better with life and to be better. And I think that's just like something that we can't talk about enough, with athletes, and that you need that, right? You need to do that kind of stuff. You need to take care of yourself, and don't ever sacrifice, the opportunity to have longevity in a sport that treats your body so well, and sacrifice a year or two, of going all in, and then just not to be physically burnt out, but also mentally and emotionally burnt out as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's about you, right? It's about caring about that kind of stuff. My thing is, if I can do something today, I want to be able to do it tomorrow. And it's a real simple microcosm, but you just want to keep being able to do stuff. So the more you get away from it, the harder it gets. And we get into these things where we just sort of blindly say, well, I'll just put that, I can always do that later. And then one day you wake up and you're like, oh shit, I can't really do that very well anymore, or whatever. And I speak from a guy who's, obviously a lot older than you, but these are the things I think about a lot. And, we call it coaching or whatever, but I think it's really, I like to think about it as a support system. I want to be there because a lot of people, we want to care about our health, and really we're the only ones that do, ultimately. I mean, other people want us to be healthy or whatever, but like to keep you in the game and to be able to talk through things with somebody, or, keep motivated, whatever the case may be, it's good to have somebody that cares. And I think that's ultimately what I think, is my sort of biggest asset, is I'm willing to talk, or, walk through this shit. It's not always about building a plan that's going to put you on the podium and that kind of stuff. I think we all get short-sighted with that, and we all want to do better and everything. But ultimately, it really does boil down to what you're talking about, all in on health and longevity and feeling good. This sport, this activity should make you feel strong and feel good in your daily life. And I just think it's so easy to take that for granted, as we do that. I mean, I'll be going through the day and I'll feel good and I won't even recognize it. And I think that's kind of the point in a way, but it's good to be reminded of that. And you want to just keep that going as long as we can.
And let's be honest, this is the hardest time of year to do it. You're pulled all different kinds of directions, and most of the time that direction isn't, what the race is coming around the corner, which is why you see athletes so eager to talk about and get primed and get their race calendar out, right, for 2025. But so as we close it out today, I mean, really focus on what you feel needs to be focused on. And sometimes, again, like focus and discipline and structure, that doesn't have to feel like expectation and perfection. Even again, like we said, just the slightest bit of effort goes so far, right? I mean, I've never met a single person in my entire life who felt better after being sedentary and doing nothing, right? It doesn't have to be all in or all out. It can just be dabbling. Even the walk of the dog makes you feel better. I don't think anybody's ever come back from a dog walk in a bad mood, right? It's just movement. Again, movement is medicine. Taking care of yourself, doing things that excite you, stay moving, right? And find, make a list, right? I think it's a great exercise to make a list of all, all the things you want to work on over the next, 90 days, 120 days. What do I want to work on? Instead of picking the one that is the hardest, which is what most athletes want to do, right? I'm gonna go at my FTP 40 watts. I want to take 2 minutes off my 5K. In the first week or two, pick the two easiest ones. Drink more water over the course of the day. Done. right? Super easy. Be better with boundaries, or, increase my protein intake, or, run 5 minutes extra on Wednesdays and Fridays, or, commit to go to the pool once. Like, pick the low hanging fruit, but that's not what triathletes do, right? They go for the high hanging fruit, which is the hardest to get to, and set themselves up for failure, and then restart over, and then they place the fruit even higher, right? to get to. Again, the low hanging fruit is just like you said, it's just like the 20-minute run. It's about behavior. It's about routine. It's about, revving the engine, warming things up, getting moving. Don't go from 0 to 80 and not expect there to be, issues, right? But again, you don't have to be fast forward, and you don't have to be in reverse. You can just kind of hang tight, hang low, get some things done. And if you find one of the three that really excites you, whether it's cycling, swimming, running, latch onto it and go on for the ride. Because you're something's telling you something, right? And so to ignore that is doing yourself a disservice. So again, like there's a lot of ways to be successful over the winter, and there's a lot of ways to progress your fitness and to mitigate the regression of fitness. And there's a lot of ways to do it with minimal effort and minimal work, but none of those equal doing nothing.
Yeah, I could be in the best shape of my life and sit in a chair for an hour and feel like I'm 100 years old when I get up.
Preach. Yeah.
I mean, chair.
It's like so true.
Seriously, man. I'm really in. Yeah, I like what you said earlier about priming the engine, because I've been meaning to kind of be a little bit more of a swimmer this fall, but the water went down, just like that whole thing. And yesterday I got out and I said, all right, I'm just going to swim out to this island and back. That's like 200 yards. I did it. And I said, I'm going to do another one. And that's about all I was feeling for the day. And I did another one, and that was fine. And I got out and I'm like, okay, I still feel okay with my swim stroke, whatever. But then I got out and then I kind of warmed up, and then that's when I decided I felt like having a little run. It's really interesting, to just sort of prime the engine as you go. See what feels like. If I would have felt better about swimming, I might have kept going. But then I decided, well, I still felt like doing something, but it wasn't necessarily that in freezing ass water.
Exactly. Yeah, you're right. That's right. So if you can leave you with anything today, just go for a little run and see what happens if you're there. And if you're already trying to go all in on 2025, slow down. Slow down, pull the reins, chill out for a minute. You'll be there, but you don't want to be there too soon, and you don't want the race to happen and you got there 3 months earlier. So don't leave your race and training in October, November either. So what
was that podcast we did? Simmer, not boil.
Exactly. Yep. Just simmer down now. Just simmer a little bit. No need to boil. Keep the lid on, folks. Keep the lid on, but keep the water in. Don't dump it out. As always, we love you guys. We appreciate you. Go to our website, c26triathlon.com. It is our one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community. If you need anything from Mike, he is available. Mike at c26triathlon.com. Or if you need anything from me, I'm available. Robbie at c26triathlon.com.
All right, bud. We'll see you later.
All right, dude. See you Thursday.
Yep.